Hello, I'm Basil Valentine, and you're watching Unprecedented TV, uncensored, unfiltered, unprecedented, the home of free speech. In a few moments, Beyond the Mainstream with Jacqui, Deevoy and Richie Brown. Their very special guest today is Matt Le Tissier. I'm on every day, Monday to Thursday at 1 p.m. with Ascending Order, your daily lunchtime news edit if you want to avoid BBC propaganda. And don't forget, our very own Lembido Pick is live every morning bright and early on X and on YouTube. More shows to come here on Unprecedented TV, but now here's Jacqui and Richie with Beyond the Mainstream.
Good evening. It's Monday, the 29th of September 2025. And tonight we're presenting Beyond the Mainstream, me, Jacqui Deevoy, and Richie Brown. Good evening, Richie.
Good evening, Jacqui. How are you keeping?
Yeah, good, thanks. So a lot's happened in the last week, news-wise. Obviously, we don't want to spend too long, you and me, chattering on about it, because we've got an amazing guest coming on any minute now. But there are a few things, obviously, that we want to talk about. Do you want to list a few of those?
Sure. So a big thing that's gone on in the last week is the Trump recalling 800 generals to what looks to be gearing up for war. And then the Wall Street Journal today has just printed how they're trying to get the military industrial complex to double and quadruple production of missiles. So it looks like the US is headed to war in China, possibly Russia.
That's pretty big news. And also, obviously, that we've got the ongoing digital ID debacle, and obviously we're going to get Matt to chat about a couple of these things as well as his own choice of subjects. So should we get Matt on now, because I think he's lurking in the green room somewhere?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hi, Matt.
Good evening. How you doing?
Brilliant. Yeah, lovely to see you again. I mean, you came on my other show a few times, and you haven't met Richie, so Matt, meet Richie. Richie, meet Matt. So
good to meet you, mate.
I'm not going to hog you too much, because obviously I've asked you every question under the sun that I could possibly ask any human being. So I'll let Richie make a start with the questions. Off you go.
Yeah. So Britain seems to be going down the pan with every passing year. I mean, people are looking mean on the streets. Things are getting tough. The price of food has shot up, and whilst this is going on, Keir Starmer's trying to ram through a digital ID.
He is indeed, yes, and trying to blame it on the illegal immigrants as the reason why we need a digital ID. I've yet to hear a reasonable explanation from anybody how he thinks that's possibly going to work and how it's going to stop the little boats coming over. Still to this day, I've never really heard anybody ask him the question directly, and if they do ask him the question, he deflects and never answers it, which is obviously what most politicians do when they're asked a direct question.
Absolutely. He seems to he's been part of the Fabian Society for years. He's also part of the Trilateral Commission, so he looks more like a governor to run an economic zone rather than a leader of our country, doesn't he?
He's not a leader of our country in any way, shape, or form. If you have a leader of the country, that country is meant to work in the best interests of the people below him. It's pretty clear now, and I think if anybody hasn't realised yet, that Keir Starmer only works for the people above him. He has no interest in those below him. Like many on the front benches, you only kind of get to that kind of level in politics, I think, if you're severely compromised and you're easy to control. That's become pretty clear to me over the last few years, and Keir Starmer's no different to any of them.
Yeah.
Certainly.
It's,
A nation under blackmail. What's your thoughts? So, as to how digital ID will work, it looks like essentially it will silo everyone off into kind of little ghettos that they can't really escape, because they can program the money to whether you can spend it in a particular district or a city or a town. They can stop you traveling. What's your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are that the people have to make enough of a fuss to make sure it doesn't go through. That's the only way. I think this is the last stand, if you like. This is the hill to die on, because once you signed up to this system, you become a slave to the government, which is exactly what they want to happen. I think because of all the dodgy deals that they do, all the skeletons are in their cupboard. I think the only way they can try and protect themselves is to put everyone in a digital prison where you can be excluded from society for saying the wrong thing on social media, asking the wrong questions, criticizing the wrong people. And that's the only way. So as long as the people realise that, there has to be enough of a pushback against it for this not to go ahead.
Yeah, can I just ask a question? So obviously, in recent months, you've kind of gone back to talking about football like you did in the old days. Most of the news stories that are available online about you now, I could only find one recent one 4 days ago that kind of referred to you as an anti-vaxxer or what have you. So is that a relief that you've kind of gone back to talking about something that you're really passionate about, all those things, but, football is obviously your first.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever really stopped talking about it. I certainly don't stop talking about it in normal life. If I'm asking questions on social media, I'll give my opinions. I've tweeted quite a few things. I think sometimes, obviously, the algorithms will decide what you see and what you don't see. It's quite interesting to know that most of the stories now are about football, because I think if most of the stories were about all the other stuff, the stories would have to be eating humble pie, saying that perhaps I was right all those years ago, talking about what I was talking about, and that's why they decide not to cover those stories anymore and start talking about football again.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. I mean, as you know, I sometimes do write for the mainstream media. They don't like, my sort of counter narrative ideas and pitches, but maybe I could persuade them into publishing an article about, Matt Le Tissier was right, because they're kind of edging in that direction a bit now, aren't they? They're kind of like sort of alluding to the fact that some of the things we were talking about 5 years ago are actually coming to fruition now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been quite a few concessions, but they'll never come out and apologise to anybody who was right all those years ago. They'll make an excuse why it's taken so long for them to find out. They'll try and portray themselves as purveyors of the truth, when we all know that the mainstream media is a lot of propaganda on there. And they give you a tidbit of truth occasionally just so that you'll consume their lies.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the media that are like that. It's people around us. I mean, over the last couple of years, has anyone actually come up to you, someone you know, or a stranger come up to you and said, "Oh, Matt, you were right about all that"?
Quite a few now, actually, Jacqui. Surprisingly enough, it took a while, but there's definitely been a vast increase in the amount of people that have actually come up and said, "You know what, I thought you were mad a few years ago, but actually, looking at the way things are turning out, you're actually talking common sense," which I always felt like I was talking common sense in the first place. So, to most normal people who weren't propagandized, and it's difficult to be annoyed at those people, because there was a lot of money spent on capturing people's minds. And it took a strong will and a really strong person to be able to sift through the nonsense, cut out all of that, and actually just look at the cold hard facts. And so it's difficult to be annoyed at those people, and I've accepted the apology graciously, even though there was a whole part of my being that was screaming, "You idiot! Why didn't you say that 3 years ago?"
That's very gracious of you. And you do have to bite your tongue though, because do you think you've kind of given up speaking out about those things now, like after 5 years? I've kind of stopped being so kind of vociferous to people that I meet and people that I know. It's like if they haven't got it now, they're never going to get it.
Yeah, I'm much more flippant about it now, to be honest. I think there's so much now come out that actually, you've got to be pretty dumbed down to not realise that a lot of that stuff from a few years ago was absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
And if you are that dumbed down, then there's no point really trying to counter the way that they think. So yeah, I've come to that realisation. But no, there's still subjects on social media that need addressing, and one of them being the aforementioned digital ID, and we need to make sure that there's plenty of pushback against that. And I'm sure that the government will be monitoring all our social media posts to see how they should react to it.
Well, that petition's got like 2.3 million signatures. Do you think petitions work?
I don't think they particularly work. I think in the sense of the way they're meant to work. I mean, but I do think that there will be, there are people on social media who are kind of looking at these numbers and taking them into consideration when they come to be making their decisions and things like that. So I don't think it works in terms of they'll have a debate about it in Parliament and then everyone will change their mind. I don't think that works particularly well. But I definitely think when you've got those kind of numbers, it's going to make people think about their next step.
Yeah, I just checked that petition. It's up to 2.5 million now.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's remarkable when you have a conversation with someone that was completely propagandized by that. I had that recently. I don't really push it on people too much these days because they haven't got it now. But yeah, in one conversation I ended up having, and they started getting government figures from the pandemic. I was a bit like, this is a complete dead end.
Yeah, well, as soon as you start having a conversation and someone starts quoting what they heard on the BBC, you know that conversation is coming to an end very quickly.
Yeah, just change the subject quick. Talk about the weather. Actually, no.
Weather modification.
Yeah. Or the chemtrails. Or blocking the sun. Yeah.
Again, another conspiracy theory that seems to have come true, and people are admitting to now doing that across the world. And that's another one that people will still say that there's no such thing as chemtrails. They can't control the weather, and yet you can point them into the own government websites where they actually have all the information about how they've tried tampering the weather down the years, and they'll still go, no, it doesn't exist. They're telling lies on their own website.
Yeah. I mean, out of all the so-called conspiracy theories, are there any that you actually don't buy into? How are you on flat Earth, for example?
I mean, I've had conversations with people who are convinced that the Earth is flat. I've also had conversations with people who are convinced that the Earth is a globe, and both of them have some convincing points. But at the end of the day, all you're doing when you're taking one side or the other is taking one person's word over another, because at the end of the day, I don't know for certain what shape the planet is.
No, I don't think we'll ever know. How
are we going to know? I mean, you can't get high enough to go and actually go, well, yeah. I mean, if somebody showed me a picture of people living upside down in Australia,
which should be easy to do.
Which should be that would be quite convincing, but I've not seen one of those yet. But yeah, I mean, there's so much arguments that go on in terms of science and refractions of light and all that kind of stuff that most people don't understand, and to be honest, most of it I don't understand. So I'm content with the fact that I don't know what shape the planet of the Earth is.
Yeah, I don't think we're meant to find out in a way. I mean, you're quite a spiritual person. You actually got baptized recently, didn't you? So
I did yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, sure, certainly. So about it was kind of during all the COVID nonsense. Really, I started understanding and realizing that there's a real battle going on this planet between good and evil. And I ended up going to the funeral of my old manager's wife a couple of years ago, and I walked into their church. It was the remembrance service, and I walked into the church for the first time, and I was just overcome by this feeling of somebody saying to me, "You belong here," and it really was very strong. And I thought, well, I've started to listen to my gut a lot more in these last few years, trust my own gut instincts, and my gut instinct was saying this is the right path for you. So yeah, I started to go to the Tesford Baptist Church in Totton here in Southampton, and I'm a regular goer there. And yeah, I decided to get baptised after been going for a couple of years now.
Well, that's really amazing, isn't it? But you do sometimes get that little voice in your head telling you to do something. And I've had one recently. I won't go into what it's about or anything, but I've kind of ignored it a few times now. But it's still nagging a bit, so I'm going to have to follow up on it. Have you had any other examples of that, happening in your life?
Yeah, I had it was interesting actually. I went to there'll be people that say, oh, it's just a coincidence and all that stuff, and I get that, but I went and speak at a freedom festival down in Dorset.
Yeah.
And this was last summer, and I got a sat nav out to get to this place and took me there perfectly well, and then I was going to have a chat with Richard Vobes. And it was going to be about, the state of the country and, the government and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he noticed that I put a little cross on my social media, on my X account, and he started asking me about Christianity and about becoming a Christian. And so we ended up speaking for about, half an hour, 40 minutes about Christianity and my journey into it. And it was the first time I'd ever spoken publicly about it. I didn't make a big fuss when I became a Christian. I just got on with my life. And this was the first time I'd actually been asked about it, live in public. And so I spoke about it for about 40 minutes. And, I was thinking, blimey, was that the right thing to do? And so as I left the festival, I left the grounds of the festival. And as I got out the festival, my sat nav took me a different way to the way that I'd come. And I thought, well, that's a bit strange. Why is it taking me this way? And as that thought kind of entered into my head, my sat nav went, you need to take the next right. After 300 yards, take the next right into God's Blessing Lane. And I literally, I got goosebumps in the car, and I was like, oh my God, what? How? Wow. And I literally had to stop in the middle of the road, and I stopped and took a picture of the name of the road because I thought people aren't going to believe this. And so, yeah, I thought that was a little sign that I was on the right road.
Did you ever read The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield?
No.
It was a fiction book. When I first read it about 20 years ago, I kind of thought it was fact. But anyway, it's got a lot of interesting points in it. It's about waking up to stuff in life, and one of the things that he says is that when these synchronicities and these coincidences start happening, it means you're kind of on the right path. It's like you've kind of slotted into the right lane, which is really interesting. And I found since then that does seem to be true. So
yeah, interesting stuff.
We seem to have lost Richie there. Oh, there he is. He's back. And what happened there, Richie?
I don't know. Disappeared for a minute.
You missed all the stuff about the baptism and God's Blessing Lane. And
no, I heard. I was just backstage.
And
yeah, it was really fascinating.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Has anything like that ever happened to you, Richie?
Spiritual? No, I wasn't spiritual for a very long time in my life. I was kind of I maintained like a very strict atheism as young as I could remember, really.
Yeah.
And then a bit older in life, I had a couple of experiences, and from there, so yeah, a bit of a complex relationship for me, but yeah.
Matt, did you grow up in a religious family? I know I've asked you this before, but no.
No. I mean, we weren't kind of anti-religion or anything like that. We were just pretty. I would say probably the only time I would go to church was for weddings and christenings and things, and that was pretty much the same for my parents, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, did your immediate family, your parents, your wife, come along with you started on this journey with you, or are you going it alone?
Yeah, my wife and daughter have been to church with me on occasions, and I have my oldest brother is also a Christian. He's been going to church for a long time. and so they've all been very supportive. So yeah, it's been lovely.
Amazing, really interesting. I want to do something now that the last couple of times you've been on my shows on Unity News Network, I love to play the goals, your best ever goals from back in the day. You know, because the only thing I like about football or understand about it is the goals, because that's the best bit. And you were actually a maestro when it came to like goal scoring. You probably still are. When was the last time you scored a goal before we show this?
The last time I scored a goal was a couple of weeks ago in a our ex-Southampton players have got a charity team. We play about 7 or 8 games a year.
Oh, amazing.
And I scored a free kick, which I think I posted it on X. Actually, I was that proud.
I'm gonna find that. Maybe we can get Basil in the background to look that up for us and show that after. But should we just have a quick look at those? Do you like looking at the old bits of video of you scoring goals?
Of course I do. Yeah.
Good. Okay, let's play it then. Let's play it.
Going for goal again. Oh! As only Matthew Le Tissier can score goals like that.
Amazing. How do you feel watching that?
Yeah, I'm very proud of the goals that I scored during my career. Yeah, I do occasionally when I'm really bored. I might flick on YouTube and have a look at the goals compilations that are on there. There's some nice ones, and yeah, it's nice to remind yourself of what you used to be able to do.
And how many goals have you actually scored in professional matches?
So I scored 209 goals for Southampton in my 540 appearances that I played for them, and I scored a hat-trick for the England B team, and some goals at representative level for England under 19 or 20, I think it was.
Yeah,
a couple of goals for them as well.
And who's the top footballer currently, would you say? Who is your favourite footballer right now?
Well, Ousmane Dembele has just won the Ballon d'Or. He's had a pretty spectacular year. Lamine Yamal is an incredible talent for a young boy, teenager. What that boy is going to go on to achieve in his career, is limitless. I think he's got the world at his feet. So, we've got some very special players around. Obviously, Messi and Ronaldo are coming towards the end of their time. So we need the youngsters to step up, and those guys seem to be doing it at the moment.
I'm nodding like I know who you're talking about. I haven't got a clue. Richie, do you follow football?
No, not at all. I used to when I was young, but I kind of drifted by the wayside on it.
To be honest, you're not a bad judge, because I think it's not as interesting as it used to be. I think sometimes the game has got a little bit too tactical now, and it's got too much cat and mouse, and I think it doesn't quite have the same passion and urgency that it might maybe had in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because the last time I was really following football was in the 70s, and it was a very different affair then. It was kind of wild and crazy and rock stars, and all the footballers wore little hot pants and had long hair and beards and had a pint of beer before they went to play. And now it's like everything, really, isn't it? Because when I look back on working on magazines back in the 80s and 90s, it was like party time. You'd go in, everyone would be having a drink, smoking cigarettes, And when I went back, I was freelance for a long time, but when I went back into an office in 2019, everyone was like a bunch of estate agents, all sitting around, silence apart from the clackety clack on the keyboards, and everyone with headphones on. There weren't phones ringing. There was no noise there was no sort of smoke that you had to fight your way through to get into the office,
Getting increasingly hard to find joy in places in this world at the moment. When we're being downtrodden at every possible turn by the people that are running this country. They're trying to take as much money as they can off of you, take away your freedoms, ruin the entertainment industries. It's quite hard to stay upbeat and happy and have a good time at the moment. But guess what? Keir Starmer, I will never let you stop me from being happy.
No, exactly. Where did that come from?
It wasn't me. It wasn't. That was me taking the free kick, but I didn't.
Oh,
put
thank
that
God
up.
it was you. That's good. That's something. I don't know where that came from. I just made a post today. I mean, obviously, you've got a young daughter. I made a post today about how teenagers seem very different to teenagers in the past, in that they seem to be, because of what they've been through in the last 5 years, most of them, they seem to be a lot more anxious, a lot more worried, unable to see the beauty and joy in life, you know. And I spent the day with two teenagers yesterday, aged 17 and 18, and they just seem to be in their own little bubble and not kind of aware of their surroundings or seeing the joy in things. I don't know. I mean, you've obviously protected your daughter from all that, but has she been affected, do you think, by what's happened in the last 5 years?
Oh yeah, certainly. It was a pretty pivotal time in her life when kind of COVID hit. She was moving from junior school to senior school. It was really tough doing the online learning and all that nonsense that they had to do. So yeah, she struggled mentally, without a shadow of a doubt, and it did set her back a little bit. But she's a fighter, and she's fought her way back, and she did pretty well in her GCSEs. She's started her A-level history, A-level PE, and doing a BTEC in law. And she's really got her head down and loves to learn about the history, which is great, because it's important to know the history, because then you can kind of predict the future a bit more when you know. But I've also told her that the history that she's learning, she has to remember that the history only gets written by the winners. So whilst taking all that information on board, also keep an open mind as to perhaps it might not be the whole truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Richie, your daughters are too young. They've missed it all, thank God.
Well, my first one grew up right during the pandemic. Everything was locked down, and she was seeing, for the first couple of years of her life, she's seeing everyone with a mask on their face, and
pretty horrible. Do you think that? I mean, compared to your younger daughter, do you think it's affected her more? Do you think she's got a memory of all that?
I don't really think she has, to be honest. And we didn't really, like, our family and stuff didn't, like, our extended family didn't really wear masks either. So when they came over, they didn't really worry about that. So I think she's all right.
I wonder, though, well, Matt, do you think there's going to be another faux pandemic?
There'll probably be another faux pandemic. There'll probably be another excuse to go to war. Because this is, how these are the things that they use to try to twist your arm into giving up your freedoms. So it's the same playbook over and over again. It's been happening for decades, probably hundreds of years, actually, when you look back at things. It's just the same old playbook, just over and over and over again. So I'm sure at some point they'll go for it again, and I'm sure at some point there'll still be a percentage of society who are willing to give up their freedoms for the illusion of safety, but I won't be one of them.
No, but do you think less people will comply this time, or do you think it'll be pretty much the same?
No, I think it'll be less. I do think it'll be less. I think there's still a sizable proportion of the public that would do exactly what the government tells them to do. But I definitely think, during COVID, I would have said probably it was about 20% of people weren't complying with the nonsense that was going on. I estimate that it's probably closer to 40 or 50% now if they try it again.
Yeah, and obviously going back to the digital ID, they talk about it being mandatory, and obviously most people think that means compulsory, and they're just frightened into doing as they're told. And even my adult kids, the younger ones in particular, think that, you know, the government is their boss, and I've, you know, had to tell them, no, they work for us. And still a lot of adults do not realize that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a massive problem. I think once the people realize just how much power they've got, you know, it's curtains for the government, because they rule by fear, and they rule by tricking people with their words. As you say, mandatory actually doesn't mean compulsory. You know, it just doesn't mean that. That's not what it is. And yeah, they just use scare tactics the whole time. But you know, as I've just become a Christian, one of the most repeated phrases in the Bible is "Do not fear, do not be afraid," and I never will be of this government.
No, nor me.
Richie? And people remember as well that in those kind of periods, it's just a lot of jobs worth ticking boxes. So I remember my friend went out and she didn't want to wear a mask, she didn't want to do and she wanted to go on holiday as well, and to say that she was vaccinated. So she just printed off like a dodgy looking letter, and then everyone she handed that to was like, oh, okay, that's fine, go ahead.
I didn't want to do that though, because that's kind of like, that's complying to the rules in a different way. And so I just kind of thought, if I'm, you know, not allowed to travel, then I just won't, because I will not comply, even to, you know, the point where you're making little dodgy notes, you know.
Well, I'd become very at peace with my decision at the height of all the nonsense, that if it meant that I would never be able to leave the country again, I would rather take that option than take the vaccine.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, they're still rolling out the vaccine. I mean, so many hundreds of thousands of people, probably millions of people now know that these jabs, they aren't vaccines, these injections are dangerous. Yet they're still pushing them. Like adverts on TV or what have you, they're still pushing it to pregnant women in particular. And Richie was just telling me the other day how his wife, who's pregnant at the moment, has been offered the RSV jab. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I mean, there was a time when, well, you'll probably know better than me, Jacqui, that you know, if you were pregnant, you weren't allowed to take anything, did you? When you drink red wine or eat cheese or all that stuff.
Definitely not cheese, especially not soft cheese. And you definitely wouldn't take any medication. Well, I must say, in the very early weeks of my first pregnancy, I had a craving for cocktails, but it only lasted a week or so. I got over it, you know. Harvey Wallbangers in particular, but you have to go with it. I don't know if there was a reason for that, but actually, my oldest daughter, she's not great with alcohol. Maybe it built up some kind of allergy, you know, or something. I don't know. So I did cause a problem. But no, back then you wouldn't take any medication. The thought of having something injected into you while you're pregnant, you wouldn't even take a paracetamol.
Bonkers, absolutely bonkers.
Of course, that's poison as well now, according to the Tylenol scandal. But yeah, I think they're just kind of trying to distract. There's so many distractions going on at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah, I think there definitely is. I mean, even the digital ID, you know, Starmer coming out with that stuff, you know, that very quickly pushed the story of his non-paying of the inheritance tax and all that, and the tax dodging that he was doing. You know, all those stories kind of went into the background when the digital ID thing kind of blew up. And you do wonder, you know, I've known for a long time about the dead cat analogy, where, you know, if you're facing a bit of a problem, you know, you throw a dead cat on the table. So throw any story on the table that's going to distract the attention away from your problem. And that's definitely something that's gone on in recent years, for sure.
Well, yeah, what's happened with the Ukrainian rent boys? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. There's another one that just died out. It's amazing how stories will just die out from the you know, from the front pages very quickly if it's not in the best interests of certain people.
Yeah, even the Charlie Kirk story, like massive, everyone arguing about it. What do you think, while that was going on, what do you think was really going on behind the scenes? You know, what was that distraction in aid of, and what was it for, and why is it suddenly gone quiet again?
I know, yeah, it's obviously done its job, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's done its job, and in the background, I'm sure there's you know, laws being put into place that are trying to make sure everyone can't get free from this digital prison that they're planning. But no, I genuinely think there'll be enough pushback against it for it not to happen.
Did you have any particular view on that particular story, the Charlie Kirk so-called assassination?
Did I have any so-called view on it? Yeah, I thought it was odd. I thought there were things about it that kind of didn't stack up in terms of, you know, the lone shooter. But, you know, as we spoke about before, you know, it's not the first rodeo for a lone shooter. And the FBI found him pretty quickly, you know, and banged him to rights very quickly. And, you know, Charlie's wife forgave him very quickly, even though he's not been found guilty yet. She's forgiven him, which so there's some things about it that kind of don't add up very much and just are a little bit just make people question the validity of it all. I'm not saying the validity of him being shot,
yeah,
but the whole scenario with the FBI, and you know, they got the guy, you know, straight away, and he even sent text messages to his, you know, detailing the whole plan. I mean, it all seems a bit too convenient for me.
Yeah, I mean, a few days after that, after Charlie Kirk was shot, they blocked the Epstein file release. They passed an amendment that had banned the Pentagon from boycotting Israel. They revoked the passports of anyone who criticizes Israel. So I mean, that all happened in the period. And that his wife, what behavior was that? That's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Is that a grieving human being? Like going on a chat show 2 weeks after a 31-year-old husband's dead?
They say people react to grief in different ways, and that is absolutely the truth. But didn't I just hear today she started a jolly little podcast that she's all enjoying at the moment, which seems a little bit premature. But anyway, you know, people do react in different ways. But no, she doesn't strike me generally as a grief-stricken widow. But who knows? I don't think we'll probably ever know the truth about that. You know, like a lot of things. Yeah, absolutely. So, Richie, what else have you got on your list to talk about? I was going to ask something actually before you come up with some more questions. I was looking at some of your posts on X. You were talking about the Fabian Society in one post, which is pretty interesting. I know just a little bit about it. What do you know about that? And is there something dark and nefarious behind that? And why are so many prominent MPs members of the Fabian Society?
And that might sound shocking.
It does sound very shocking.
Every senior member of our cabinet, and actually I think pretty much every senior Labour politician, certainly over the last 25 years, have been members of the Fabian Society. And for those who don't know, the Fabian Society is a secretive organisation who believe in communism through evolution, not revolution. Their logo is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
That says it all.
That says a lot. And then when you look at the UK, what's happening and what's happened, certainly in the last 25 years, if you look at it through a Marxist or a communist lens, things start to come into focus of what's actually happening. And going away from the investment world, you look at the deliberate destruction of families, the deliberate destruction of religion. These are all communist tactics, if you like, because under a communist regime, the only thing that matters is the state. The state provides, the state is all. And you start to sort of join the dots on this, and you think, okay, this is what we're up against.
Yeah. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah,
yeah, and it was interesting actually, because I hadn't heard of the Fabian Society until fairly recently, but I do remember doing an interview on GB News about 2 or 3 years ago, and I basically said it feels like this country is edging towards communism.
yeah.
This is before I kind of knew about these people. And when I heard him speak like that and how he kind of explained it all, it makes perfect sense to me. It just joins all the dots in my head that is going, well, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Okay. And it is, and it's like the boiling the boiling of the frog.
Yeah.
You know, you just do it gradually. He doesn't know he's getting done, and that feels like what it's like in our society. They've done that to a lot of people, and it is so gradual that not many people have joined the dots together yet. But luckily, you know, I kind of realised a few years ago now, and life's been a lot less stressful when you know what's happening, when you know, and I know it sounds a bit odd to say that, because you want everybody to know, but I think more and more people are beginning to know, and it's easier to deal with things when it's so out in the open. You know, the whole secretive thing is difficult to deal with when it's a secret, but now these things are being brought out into the open and they're being spoken about publicly. You know, I was talking about Keir Starmer being a member of the Trilateral Commission back in 2020, 2021. You know, and being on the same, that's the same commission that Jeffrey Epstein was on.
Yeah.
And so you just join dots together and you go, well, hang on a minute, if he was on there with Jeffrey Epstein, and Keir Starmer was also the Director of Public Prosecutions when Jimmy Savile got away with everything, and Jimmy Savile was Prince Charles's confidant for many years, you know, marriage counsellor, and Prince Andrew, as we know what he's been done, you know, he's just given, well, his mummy gave 12 million quid to somebody who he'd never met. That was interesting.
And she's now dead.
Of course, we all believe that, and now she's now dead. Yeah, and so yeah, there's some weird things going on in the world, but when your eyes have been opened, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. The Fabian Society first came to my attention many years ago, but I didn't really look into it because it wasn't really relevant to me at the time. But in recent months, I've noticed, it was said that Kim Ledbetter, who's you know, pushing the whole assisted dying bill in Parliament, she's a member of it. And of course, the Fabian Society do have a sort of general eugenics, euthanasia sort of a thing going on in the background there. So yeah, that's pretty horrendous. And as you know, I've been kind of working on all that over the last 5 years, and our most recent, me and Richie put a film together, just came out in July, I don't know if you've seen it, called Unseen, which is all about that. Richie, do you want to just tell Matt a bit about it before I ask him the next question?
Sure, I'll continue a bit on the Fabian Society though.
Oh yeah, do that.
Yeah, I mean, eugenics is their mainstay. You can sort of tie it in from Bernard Shaw. He's the fellow that went on saying there should be 5-year death panels. But he was also really close to Bertrand Russell and H.G. Wells. And H.G. Wells made this comment, which I think sums up the Fabian Society. He said, we're looking for a liberal fascism or an enlightened Nazism. And he said that in the 1930s. So that's kind of, and you can tie those three people, those intellectuals, you can tie them to Kissinger and David Brzezinski. And then those two created the Trilateral Commission that Keir Starmer's a part of. So you can see how it all kind of interconnects. Yeah. Unseen, our film. We interviewed 10 people, 10 families that had like a family member die from a death protocol. And it is a very, very bizarre, like, when I couldn't believe it when I first heard of it, and I got in touch with Jacqui because I wanted to chat to her, and I was still a bit like, oh, is this just a conspiracy nonsense or whatever? And after I did my own sort of research, I was like, well, this is going on up and down the country, like it's an absolute shambles. And yeah, I mean, at what point when you're in a hospital, you're in a care home, do you realize that you're being put on a death pathway? I mean, they're not helping you, that they're trying to kill you. They're either giving you midazolam and morphine or putting you on a ventilator, or you know, all this kind of stuff. And so yeah, it's quite a long documentary. It goes on for 2.5 hours. But, the people we've spoken to seem to enjoy it. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask Matt, you know, obviously you're aware of that because we've been in touch for a long time now, but have you been personally affected by anything like that? Any problems in hospitals or care homes, or have you heard any stories yourself personally?
I've luckily no one in my immediate family, but I did have a story. One of my dad's best friends, he lived in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
But he was visiting Guernsey. He was having treatment for cancer, but he'd gone over to Guernsey and was staying with my mum and dad. And he had gone back to Yorkshire for some treatment, and on the flight back to Guernsey, he was convinced that he'd caught COVID. And so he was staying with my mum and dad. He had this COVID, and he was really struggling with his breathing. He was really quite poorly, to the point where my mum and dad rang for an ambulance. And the ambulance people came, and they saw that he was really struggling with his breathing and everything. But they had to make a phone call to somebody higher up in the health system to get the okay to take him into hospital. So they made the phone call to whoever it was higher up in the healthcare system. And this person on the phone, who had not seen the person in question, they just asked a couple of questions. And this person went, no, leave him there. Now, my parents were, knocking on 80 at this point, and they've got this guy with, very poorly in their house. They don't know that, they might not, they think they might catch it off of him, but they were told he's got to stay in this house. So my mum and dad live in an annex on the back of my brother's house. It was quite small.
Mm.
And so they said, no, we're not going to take him in, just leave him here. So they left him there, and for another 4 or 5 days he's really struggling. And in the end, my mum and dad went, oh, we have to do something, we have to call the ambulance. So the ambulance came out eventually after about 4 or 5 days, I think it was. And at that point they went, okay, yeah, well, we're going to take him into hospital. 2 days later he was dead. Now, you're not to say that, if they'd have taken him a week before, he would have survived. You don't know. He had other things going on. But come on, there's something not quite right with that situation where he's so poorly, really struggling to breathe, and they wouldn't take him into hospital. Now, that doesn't sound like a particularly good healthcare service to me.
No, exactly. When someone dies, they don't tend to die that suddenly. It's a gradual process, and even if you've got a terminal illness, a severe terminal illness, it takes months, sometimes years before you get to the point of death. But there's been so many stories of people being taken into hospital and dead 2 days later. It's very common. And I've heard, me and Richie have heard so many stories now. I think I've heard over 1,000 in the last few years, making the other films as well. That it's just something very sinister going on. And what's your
yeah. It's not just the old people either. I have conversations with people now on a daily basis, and at some point during a conversation, it will turn to somebody that they know has been diagnosed with cancer. Somebody that they know who is, only got a few weeks left to live, incurable cancer. I had a conversation on Saturday night with one of my neighbours. I hadn't seen her for a little while. And she just casually talking and just dropped into the conversation that, one of her younger members of her family, who was 32 years old, just dropped dead on the spot. And I'm having these conversations all the time, about young people just dying suddenly, and nobody's asking questions. It's bizarre.
And when you read the news stories in the mainstream media, they miss out all sorts of important details, but the one that they miss out a lot is what happened. As a reader, you actually read the story, and your first thing is someone of 18 or 20 has died. Your first thing is, oh my God, what happened to them? And that's the bit they miss out. And as a journalist, if I presented a story to a mainstream newspaper and didn't mention what actually happened to the person or what the cause of death was, or even what they thought it might be, they'd just throw the story back in my face. But all these stories now, there's huge, great big holes in them. And even to the point where some of the stories are like, there's a man in a place and this thing happened to him. And the story is so shocking or terrible, you forget to ask, oh, well, what's the man's name and how old was he and where did he live? And it's like, that could be a completely fabricated story. And I think a lot of the stories in the press are fabricated. But again, like I said, if I pitched a story like that, they'd want to know all the details. So I think a lot of these stories are manufactured in-house on the papers by the staff. Do you think that the media journalists, especially the ones who work in-house, have been instructed to do this? Or do you think they're just making it up for the fun of it?
I would imagine they're under instructions. I think there is a far bigger plan. There are no coincidences. The amount of gaslighting that has gone on is just incredible, and they're just trying to get everybody to believe that a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old dying suddenly is actually pretty normal. When actually we all know that should be quite unusual, you know. And those things used to make the news because they were so unusual, but we only heard about them once in a blue moon, and yet it just seems to be all around at the moment. So I don't think the media are representing themselves very well, let's put it that way.
No.
I think they've been disgusting over the last few years with the way that they've covered stories, the way they covered the protests that were happening, the peaceful protests, the difference in the way that they covered the Black Lives Matter protests. It's been absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the younger people who are dying, I've got this horrible sneaking suspicion, again, a conspiracy theory, that these younger deaths quite often are linked to organ donor stuff, So I think a lot of the younger people who are dying are being euthanized because, amongst the 1,000 or so stories that I've heard, there have been a percentage of deaths of younger people in highly suspicious circumstances. I'm starting to think now, are these people being targeted, or if they've died for whatever reason, or are they being targeted for their organs? Is that something you've looked into?
It's not something I've looked into, but I do know that there is obviously a trading, and it's actually incredibly lucrative from what I'm aware of, that there is a lot of money to be made in trading these things. So, wherever there is a lot of money to be made, there's normally a little bit of corruption going on and a little bit of, stuff that you don't really get to know about. So it doesn't surprise me it wouldn't surprise me if that is what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a horrendous thought. Richie knows quite a bit about that. He interviewed Dr. Heidi Kleiseg, who actually admitted to back in the 80s when she was a student anaesthetist. I can't say that, wasn't she, Richie? She actually admitted to murder by dismemberment. So, which is quite...
her story is absolutely shocking. Heidi Kleisig is her name, Klessig, and she recounts her story. She was like a medical student or what have you. She was told to harvest the organs of this person, and she asked the doctor, "Oh, is there anything I should know on the way up?" And he responds, "Yeah, make sure they're actually dead." And it's to do with this brain death, how they basically fabricated this brain death in 1968. Basically, there's like 15 people in Harvard got together and decided how could they certify people as brain dead so they could get access to organs. It's a truly shocking story.
I think what's interesting is that I didn't realise, organ donations, they can't actually take the organs out of somebody who is dead because they're no good.
You have to be alive,
and they have to be alive, and that's why they've come up with this scenario of pronouncing people dead, brain dead, so that their organs are still working. They can cash in on using the organs and selling them.
As Richie said, they actually introduced brain death in order to facilitate the harvesting of organs. And of course, something that very strange that happened back in May 2020 was that the whole organ donor thing changed, and all of us now, unless we've actively opted out, we are all by default organ donors. And it still surprises me how few people know this. I mean, even doctors and nurses that I've spoken to say, "Really, when did that happen?" And it's like, well, 5 years ago. And it's absolutely horrendous. And I obviously opted out straight away. A lot of people I know did.
Yeah, me too.
But have you checked recently? Because as someone said to me recently, and I haven't found out yet whether it's true or not, that you have to opt out every year. Otherwise, they just put it back to how it was before, So that's something I need to look into and find out about. And I tried to opt out again online on the NHS. You go to NHS Organ Donor. And I don't know if it went through again or not because I didn't get any response to it. So I've got a letter, but even if you have opted out, if your friends and family don't know, or if you're suddenly involved in, say, a car accident, and there's the driving license thing. If you've got in section 12.115 written in that section, that means you're an organ donor, and that overrides the fact that you've opted out. So they do everything they can to make sure that you are a donor. So that's a bit. Did you know that about the driving license?
I've heard something about the driving license, actually. Yes, so I'm going to have to check that.
Yeah, check. So it's section 12 on the back of your driving license. If there's a 115, it means you're an organ donor, whether you've opted out via the NHS or not.
Okay.
So they're just trying to catch people however they can. It's absolutely terrifying.
It is indeed.
Yeah. So what's your general opinion of the NHS overall? I mean, should we be trying to, cheer them on like many people did back in 2020, or should it be? Do you think it would be shut down? If so, what should it be replaced with?
Should it be shut down? I think it should be run by better people. I first and foremost, I think it should be, with the amount of money it's given. And I hear stories all the time from people within the NHS about the amount of money that's wasted in amongst that. And there obviously needs to be a lot better management of funds, first and foremost. I do like the idea of, free healthcare. It's not free because obviously we pay for it with our taxes, but it is a good system if it's working properly and it's not being abused by people. I think that's the problem that we've got. There's too many people that abuse it, and I think it wastes too much money. So there's definitely a need for change in some directions, but what that looks like as the best option, I haven't given a huge amount of thought to.
Yeah. I'm sure Richie's got some facts and figures on all that. Do you want to talk about that, or should we move to the next question?
Yeah, I mean, well, they waste a lot of money through like private finance initiatives, which is kind of like privatizing it through the back door. So they hand out these contracts, which they know are just going to get washed to like a third party company instead of actually investing in the NHS. But then someone in the government comes out and says, we've invested X amount in the NHS when it's just been washed out to a private company. So, yeah.
So anyway, enough of all that heavy stuff. Tell us about what you do in your spare time. Or do you have any spare time?
Yeah. I have spare time. Yes. I was cancelled from my job a few years ago, so it gave me a bit of spare time.
Actually, for people who don't know, tell us a little bit about that. I know, and you know, but
I was working on Soccer Saturday on Sky Sports News for almost 20 years, but in 2020, due to my going against the grain with the narrative of the day of the mainstream media, I was relieved of my duties in August of 2020, which is probably a blessing in disguise, if I'm honest. It meant that I didn't have to rely on that organisation for my wages every month. And I was criticising them quite heavily whilst working for them, which was interesting. So I knew what was going to happen. So it gave me a bit more spare time. So I get to go and watch Southampton play a little bit more often. That's one of the things that I do. I still get out to St Mary's and watch my old team play. I'm a very keen golfer, so I try and play golf 2 or 3 times a week. I play paddle tennis. I play in our ex-Southampton players football team, a few charity games every year. So basically anything sport related I do in my spare time, and I also am a very keen on keeping my brain working, and I love doing logic puzzles and things like that in my spare time when I'm just sat on the sofa when there's nothing on the telly.
Quite right too. Good up, but man's got to relax. I noticed that you promote CBD oil. I'm very fascinated in that because my oldest daughter was an advocate for medical cannabis, and obviously there's a big link between CBD oil and cannabis. How did you get into promoting that, and what are your views on it?
So I got into promoting it. So Anthony Fowler contacted me, who's the guy who started up Supreme CBD, former Olympic boxer, and he contacted me. And actually, the first time he contacted me, I went, "No, you're all right, mate." I said, "I'm fine. I don't want to get involved in that." And then he kind of kept chipping away. We kept in touch, kept chipping away, and in the end, I just went, "Well, I'll tell you what, just send me some, and I'll try it. And if it's any good, then I'll help you promote it." I said, "But if it doesn't work, I'm not going to do it." So he was like, "Okay, cool." So he sent me some, and I started using the gummies to help with my sleep. I was finding I was having some unbroken sleep. I wasn't getting like a full good 8 hours kip or 7 hours kip. And my wife had osteoarthritis in her fingers, so she was using the CBD oil And pretty quickly, she noticed a huge difference in her arthritis. And I started noticing that I was no longer getting up during the middle of the night, and I was having a good 7 or 8 hours sleep every night. I was like, oh, actually, he might have something here. You know, this stuff seems to work. So that's why I got involved with it and happily promote it, because I've seen it work for my family. So so it's pretty easy, and it was interesting actually. I don't know if you saw today, or was it today or yesterday? I think it might be today, that Donald Trump actually on his Truth Social account posted a 2 or 3 minute video talking about the endocannabinoid system, which is what interacts with CBD. And yeah, I was like, well, okay, yeah, that's interesting. He's obviously had somebody in his ear going, you know, this
I think we know who that
endocannabinoid
is.
system is pretty important. And the CBD, the CB1, you've got CB1, CB2 receptors, and the CBD will react to that. And that's why it's so good for so many different things, because it's got a lot of benefits for a lot of different ailments. And people can't seem to understand why. And actually, that video explains it pretty well.
Yeah, I haven't seen that actually. I must look out for that. I think we know who's been whispering in his ear. What's your views on him?
On RFK, I think he's doing some terrific work. I think he's up against an unbelievable machine, a very corrupt and a very lethal organisation. So I think he has to tread very carefully at times. That's how I'm reading things at the moment. You know, there are still a few things that he says that I kind of go, okay, why are you saying that? You know, the whole thing about the autism thing that Donald Trump spoke about the other day with the Tylenol. You know, that's kind of almost saying that vaccines are no good, and then talking about the heavy metals that are in the vaccines. And so I think there's a lot of things that are coming out that I think a lot of people realise that aren't particularly good for you. And he is, you know, doing it slowly, I think, so as not to upset too many people all at once. And that's kind of how I'm reading things at the moment.
Yeah, I think so too. That is fascinating, though, that Trump's been speaking about the endocannabinoid system, because, I mean, that system in the body is as big and important as the nervous system, you know, or whatever. And people are not aware. Even when my daughter used to speak to GPs, they have actually no clue that it even exists, let alone what it is and how it works. So,
oh, absolutely, yeah. I think it's only been discovered it's only been discovered for a few decades. So, but you would have expected at this point, surely the doctors would have known about this by now.
Well, the body has got cannabis receptors in it, you know, in the same way as it's got nicotine receptors as well. That's another thing that's come up recently, isn't it? How nicotine can actually help with certain conditions in its purest form. That doesn't mean sit there smoking 20 Rothmans, you know, that's not going to do you any good. Although my granny smoked 40 a day and lived to be 93, so, you know, who knows. But you don't smoke or drink or do anything untoward, do you, Matt?
I certainly don't smoke. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. I've never done drugs in my life. I've had the occasional Malibu and Coke. But even with alcohol, I've chosen one of the weakest spirits you can possibly drink. So yeah, alcohol was never that big a deal for
nice,
me.
Though. Malibu's good. I like a drop of Malibu.
It's
or
interesting,
maybe a little
actually,
Baileys.
Yeah, I like Baileys as well. But it's interesting because I have this thing where you know, if I meet somebody or I'm playing golf with someone for the first time, and they like ask me questions and things, and you know, at the end of the round of golf, they go, "Oh, do you want a pint of beer?" And I go, "No, I've never drunk a pint of beer in my life." And they look at me like I've got 4 heads. I was like, "What? You've never drunk a pint of beer?" No, I've never drunk a pint of beer in my life, and I have no intention of drinking it. Hate the smell of it, so why would I want to put it in my mouth? But I have to. Yeah, but I have the same thing with wine. So I've never had a glass of wine, and also I've never drank a cup of coffee.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Well, that's pretty
Just water
impressive.
for you,
I mean,
Matt.
again, yeah, I think that, I understand where you're coming from. I think beer tastes disgusting. I don't know why people have or how they can drink it. And it took me a long time to get into wine, which was a bad move, to be honest, because it's not that great, to be honest. It doesn't taste that marvelous. But the effects of it are quite nice sometimes. But
User here, and I think Jacqui is having connection problems.
Oh, good.
But-
I thought it was just me then.
No, I think it's Jacqui. So, but time is up anyway, folks. So it's in the time-honored words of the two Ronnies. Goodbye from me.
It's
never
goodbye
have
from
I
me.
ever had a cup of coffee,
Thanks, Matt.
because most people have had coffee and most people have had.
Most people have had coffee and tea. Yes, absolutely, Jacqui. And it's goodbye from Jacqui too. Thank you, Matt.
Evening and all.
Oh, was our
Bye.
connection gone in there?
All the best.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening there. It has been going a little